Hey everyone, so I'm here to try out my new idea which I posted about in my last video, and what that is going to be is I'm going to try to do a video post which will be a summary of my entire week. So it will be me sort of speaking about what Ralph and I discussed and different concepts and things that interested me, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my writing my blog posts as more of an opportunity to share my summaries, my notes, and different things like that, so you can really dive down into the work that I'm doing. So this is a summary of last week, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk to you guys about it, say some things that interested me, and I'd love comments, feedback, and maybe we can even have a good discussion on some of these concepts. So last week was a really wonderful week for Ralph and I. It was it just continued the streak of awesome weeks that we've been having. And we based this week's conversation, as we have been, on Hannah Arendt's book. Ralph and I dived into many concepts that I brought up in my last video post. So he watched that and came to our meeting with a bunch of points that we went over and discussed. Now, our conversation stemming from that video post, which you guys can go back and watch, it's Hannah Arendt on. It's me reflecting on Hannah Arendt, pages 93 through 114. We dived into the idea of control over situations as well as predictability. Now, Ralph and I have a way of sort of getting off on very long philosophical tangents, but I feel like those tangents are what really helped me to discuss and understand Hannah Arendt's book. Her book can at times be very challenging, and I feel like breaking it down into more fundamental issues can really help me deal with it. So we talked about control versus predictability. Now, I feel that control over a situation is one's desire to know what's coming next. Now, along with control also comes predictability. Now, predictability is the yearning or the desire to have control over a situation that has not happened yet. Now, these two concepts spoke to me about how often we have no control over the situation and events that happen in our lives. These concepts also really related for me to my reading in Hannah Arendt's book. Specifically, one quote that sort of stood out for me on page 95 read, "It is so difficult to comprehend that there is a realm in which we can truly be free, that is, neither driven by ourselves nor dependent on the givens of material existence." Now, when I first read this, the phrase, "the givens of material existence," really spoke to me in terms of materialism, materialistic society, the modern amenities. How do we live without those things? How do we have control over ourselves without living with those things? But it came to my attention through multiple discourses, that actually this might be another thing, and material existence might be existence as who you are, existence in yourself, and who you really are. Material existence goes more beyond just material objects, but it goes into who you are. And so that spoke to me in terms of control and existence. How could people be truly free from life? What are things that define people? How can I be free from things that define me? And so that was sort of a very interesting topic, and it was one example of how I sort of misinterpreted a specific quote and then came back and had a new vision about it. And one thing I also thought this quote was saying is that we cannot comprehend a space or a place where we are free and different from what defines us in the world. And although this was straying, off the path of politics and different things like that, I thought it was a really important thing for me to unpack this quote and get to the bottom of it, because I don't really think I understood it to begin with. Now, through this idea and these concepts that we had discussed, the idea of routine was brought up between us. And the idea of routine was something very interesting, but I feel like it came up through the talk of individuals, family, politics, things like that. And routine was something that had sort of just switched over into our conversation. Now, one thing that was interesting about our conversation of routine was that I could really apply some of my own experiences to it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel that when I travel or when I go away, it almost seems as if the life I'm leaving behind suddenly becomes unreal to me. Whenever I travel, I become in the now. I truly live in the present. I'm not connected to social media in the same way. I don't have my phone in the same way. I'm not surrounded by friends. I'm not always wondering, oh, I'm going to go see so-and-so, after school, and I don't have a plan for my life. But it's simply, I'm going to go walk around Paris, or I'm going to go check out this museum and do a lot of different things. And I feel like an interesting part about that is it might be the break from routine. Maybe routine creates an illusion for us. Now, bear with me a second now, because when I'm away and I'm traveling, I live in the present, and I come back into my life, it doesn't take very long for me to sink back into my old routine. But when I'm away, it seems as though my life was an illusion. That wasn't really real. What's real is me now in this vibrant new city of new and amazing experiences. And so what's interesting for me, and what Ralph and I discussed, was the idea of routine versus illusion. Does routine create an illusion of life? And, is routine the illusion of life? Is routine one of the things that makes it so hard for people to escape their normal lives? Is routine the thing that really holds someone down? And although this might have been a little bit harder to relate back to Hannah Arendt's book, it was a really eye-opening thing for me to talk about because it really spoke to me in my own experiences. But it also related back to the book in terms of individuals and politics and how we sort of function in a community and in the world and who we are. And there are a lot of interesting things for me to talk about there. Now, one quote I'd like to read you guys, which sort of relates to those ideas, goes as follows. The world is organized in such a way that there's no place within it for the individual, and that means for anyone who is different. Now, that's on page 94. Now, this quote is a little different from the idea of routine and illusion, but I feel like some of the common themes strike it as location in the world, the individual, and sort of even being different, because I feel like there is sort of a parallel there, and I'm still struggling to see that, but I feel like that quote does have significance for me in what I've been talking about. And so, that was a really great week for Ralph and I feel like we really talked about many important things. Because in politics and in society, the individual is just as an important factor as anybody else. The family, the individual, the routine of the individual, how they live, different things like that all come into play in any society and any political realm, because politics rules over those people, and those people have just as much influence on the political system as the political system has on them. And that's what I believe. So, thanks so much for tuning in, and please keep in touch for another video summary and iteration of my work this week, well actually next week, technically, with Ralph. Alright, thanks so much.